Python inheritance. This is lesson 18. And again, as usual, you should open your Python compiler or interpreter in viewing this video. So Python inheritance. Inheritance allows us to define a class that inherits all the methods and properties from another class. Parent class is the class being inherited from and also called the base class. Child class is the class that inherits from another class, also called derived class. Create a parent class. So any class can be a parent class. So the syntax is the same as creating any other class. So create a class named person with first name and last name properties and a print name method. So we have class person. So define, this is our constructor or our init methods. We have self f name and last name, so L name. So self that first name equals f name, self that last name is equal to L name. So first name and last name are our properties. Then we have a method inside this class which is called print name. So this will print self that first name and self that last name. Okay, so if we use the class to create an object, so we have x is equal to person John Doe, and then x dot print name, so this will print John Doe. Of course, we have learned how to create this one, do this one in the previous video. So we have created a parent class. Now next, we create a child class. So to create a class that inherits the functionality from another class, send the parent class as a parameter when creating the child class. So here, class student, and then inside here we place the name of the parent class. So person. So create a class named student which will inherit the properties and methods from the person class. So we have to place here the name of the class. Then this is just used so that this will not cause an error. So use the pass keyword when you do not want to add any other properties or methods to the class. So now the student class has the same properties and methods as the person class. So let's say, for example, use the student class to create an object and then execute the print name method. So we have here x equals student Mike Olsen. So x print name. So this will also print Mike Olsen. So maybe we can have a short demo of that. So let's try. So wait. So I'll be opening my Python. So how do we create a class? So let's go back to our PowerPoint. So parent class. So that's our parent class. So let's try to do that. So my command line. So to do that, we just define or we just type class, then person. So we have def. So we have to indent. Self f name, L name, then we have colon, so that means there will be a block. So we have your self that first name is equal to f name, self that last name is equal to L name. Then we have the next one, def print name self. So print self dot first name self dot last name. So that ends my class. So let's try to use that class. So x is equal to person, and then we have John Doe. So if we print x, sorry. So we use the method, so that will print John Doe. So now we create our child class. So to create our child class, we type class and then student, that's the name of the class, and then the name of the parent class, colon, pass. So I have created now a class that inherits the properties and the method of the person class. That's why if I place here x is equal to student, then I have here my Olsen, and then x dot print name. So I have here my Olsen, although I did not define anything inside my person in my student class, but since it inherits this one, the methods and the properties from the parent class, so we automatically have this method also. So here it was demonstrated here. I have demonstrated that a while ago. Then we add the init function. So far we have created a child class that inherits the properties and methods from each parent. So we want to add the init function to the child class instead of the pass keyword. So the init function again is called automatically every time the class is being used to create a new object. So the init function or the constructor, this is a constructor as I've said in other languages, function to the student class. So we have class student person, def init self, f name, l name, and then we add the properties here. So when you add init function, the child class will no longer inherit the parent's init function. So it will have its own function. So the child's init function overrides the inheritance of the parent's init function. So take note of that. So if we have this one, then the init function of the parent class will no longer be inherited by the child class. So add the init function. So to keep the inheritance of the parent's init function, add a call on the parent's init function. So let's say we have here class person. So this is what we have done last time. And then we have another class student. So define init self name. So if you want to use the init function of the parent class, we have to call it. So person init self name. Then so x equals student Mike Olsen. So x print name, so Mike Olsen. So in this case now, the init function here is actually similar with the init function of the person class or the parent class. So now we have successfully added the init function and kept the inheritance of the parent class, and we are already ready to add functionality in the init function. Use the super function. Python also has a super function that will make the child class inherit all the methods and properties from its parent. So the first, let's take a look at the code here. So similar with the previous one, then in creating the student class that inherits the person class, so we have defined in itself f name l name. So instead of using person, we use super dot init f name l name. So super here is similar with the previous one, but instead of using the name, we just use the function super. So add properties. So add a property called graduation year to the student class. So let's say for example again, class person, so the same, we have first name last name, then print first name last name, student person, then we have super init f name, then we added a property to the student class. So this one is a property of student class, not a property of the person class. So self graduation year equals 2019. So if we x equals student Mike Olsen, if we print x dot graduation year, so we're printing the property of this object, so this will print 2019 because that's the value of that property. In example below, the year 2019 should be a variable and pass into the student class. So in the previous one, it is a constant. So here, it will be a variable and pass to the student class when creating student objects. So to do so, add another parameter in the init function. So add a year parameter. So here, similar, the same with the previous one, our person class. And then in our class student person now, in the init function, we place self, fname, lname, and then we added year. Then we use the init function of the parent class. Then self.graduation is equal to year. So instead of a constant, we use year. So that in creating a student object, so we type student, then we have Mike Olson, and then specify the year. Then print x.graduation year. So this will give us 2019. Add methods. So add a method called welcome to the student class. So we have class person, so the same. We have now student person. So we have init, self, fname, lname, year. So per init, fname, lname, self. So here the same as the previous one, but here we added another method. So welcome self, so print welcome, then it will print the first name, last name to the class of, and then the graduation year. So we have x equals student Mike Olson 2019, x.welcome. So this will execute this method. So it will print welcome Mike Olson to the class of 2019. So we have added methods, or in this example, so we have now two methods for the student class. So that ends our lecture on inheritance, and thank you very much for viewing this video.